Hey everyone, you're watching We Had That, and today I'm going to talk about the 1983 Wave 2 Masters of the Universe Manny Faces action figure from Mattel. When the first wave of Masters of the Universe figures came out in 1982, I think even Mattel was surprised by their popularity. They rushed to get a second wave on the shelves, probably hoping to have them in stores in time for Christmas of 1982, but they were certainly out at least in early 1983. Manny Faces was part of this very small second wave, which included only 6 figures. Evelyn was also part of this wave, but I don't have an Evelyn figure to include in this photo, just the card back. Mattel borrowed a lot of ideas and even some molds from their Big Jim line of action figures launched in the 70s. Around 1976 or 1977, Big Jim had a team called Big Jim's Pack. Their enemy was a face-changing villain named Zorak with a human face and a monster face. I would imagine that the idea for Manny Faces came from this character. Manny Faces stands out to me personally because he was one of only 6 Masters of the Universe figures that I had as a kid. He wore an outfit that looked to me like a cross between a spacesuit and a robot. The main colors of the figure were blue and orange, and I always thought that the orange was just the color of the suit. But when I look at the artwork on the card back, it looks like it might have been his skin. So it's possible that the suit was supposed to provide a lot less covering than I had originally thought. Or maybe the colorist for the art just got it wrong. Either way, I think of the orange as being part of his outfit rather than his skin. But interestingly, when Manny Faces was released as part of the Classics line, the color was closer to his skin tone on the packaging art than it was to the orange from the vintage figure. There have been numerous versions of Manny Faces over the years, but most of them seem to be closer to the color of the vintage orange figure rather than the skin tone of the Classics figure. Manny Faces had a unique torso that would allow for his face-changing mechanism. The torso had purple tubing or wires across his chest that extended around to his back. You could turn the knob on his head and that would change his face from a human to a robot or to a monster. His arms looked like they were armored or robotic, and he had what appeared to me to be sergeant stripes on his shoulders. The mold for his legs was also used on Trapjaw, and again a couple of years later on Roboto. The silver paint has pretty much totally come off of my Roboto figure's legs, so he doesn't quite look as cool as he did when he first came out. My figure came with just an orange ray gun, which was cool, but later versions of the figure also included a bunch of extra weapons. They were maroon versions of 5 of the weapons from Castle Grayskull: the mace, the laser rifle, the battle axe, the sword, and the shield. The card back that I have for the figure has a yellow starburst printed on the front promoting the free weapons inside. It seems like this would have been a better fit for Man-at-Arms, so I'm not sure why they came with Manny Faces. It makes me wonder if the figure hadn't been selling as well as the other characters from the second wave, and Mattel thought that the bonus weapons might encourage kids to buy Manny Faces over another figure. I don't know, but as a kid, a bunch of extra weapons could definitely have swayed my decision about picking up one of the figures over one of the others. Anyway, the version of Manny Faces that came with the bonus accessories has been affectionately known as Manny Weapons by many of the Masters of the Universe collectors. Manny Faces appeared in a few issues of the mini-comics that were included with each figure. His first appearance, and the comic included with the Manny Faces figure, was The Ordeal of Manny Faces. Not surprisingly, this comic told the character's origin story. He had originally been an actor who came upon Skeletor after one of his performances. Skeletor forced Manny Faces to drink a potion which turned him into a monster under Skeletor's control. After following his master's commands, Skeletor could turn him back into a human with no memory of his actions. When Skeletor again turned Manny Faces into a monster, the two kidnapped Teela. The sorceress tracked them down and transported herself along with He-Man to Skeletor's lair, where the sorceress and Skeletor battled for control over Manny Faces. Skeletor eventually lost and fled the scene, leaving Manny Faces a neutral robot. Although the sorceress was able to turn Manny Faces back into a human, all 3 of his different personalities, or faces, would be a part of him from then on. In addition to being the first appearance of Manny Faces, the comic is noteworthy for a couple of other reasons. First, It's considered by many to be the turning point away from the Savage He-Man stories to the Filmation cartoon continuity because it was the first of the mini-comics to feature the royal palace as well as the king and queen. And second, the sorceress character in the comic looks a lot more like the Teela action figure, while the Teela character in the comic looks like the Teela figure without her snake armor but with long blonde hair instead of red or brown hair. This comic lends credence to the theory that the Teela action figure was originally supposed to be two different characters, both Teela and the sorceress. Although Manny-Faces appeared in 4 more mini-comics, his appearances are minor and there's no mention of him being an actor. In fact, his face-changing gimmick isn't even used in any of the other stories. Only his human face is ever seen. No robot or monster face appear in any of the other 4 issues. He is included a good bit in Skeletor's Dragon, but only as one of the guys on He-Man's team. In Mantenna and the Menace of the Evil Horde, we don't see his face very well at all. In Hordak, the Ruthless Leader's Revenge, he's only in 3 panels, and finally in Treachery of Modulok, Manny-Faces can only be seen in 1 panel, and even there he's just one character in a large group. Manny-Faces was featured even less in the Filmation cartoon than he was in the mini-comics. He was really only in 2 episodes. The first one was The Mystery of Manny-Faces, which aired as part of Season 1 in 1983. In this episode, He-Man told Man-at-Arms the story of Manny-Faces, which is very different from his origin in the comic book. In this version of his origin, Manny-Faces was a bully who tormented a group of little people called Widgets. Skeletor learned about this jerk and decided to recruit him into his ranks, but He-Man was also told about this guy bullying the Widgets and headed over to help. He-Man arrived and took on Manny-Faces pretty easily just before Skeletor flew over and teleported Manny-Faces onto his flying skull ship called the Collector. Manny-Faces turned down Skeletor's demand to work for him, so Skeletor ordered Beastman to use his ability to control animals on the monster version of Manny-Faces, and the trio headed over to Castle Grayskull to take over the place. He-Man arrived just in time to stop them. The sorceress broke Beastman's mind control over the monster version of Manny-Faces, which allowed him to turn human again and prevent Beastman from controlling him. After helping He-Man fight Beastman and Skeletor, Teela asked Manny-Faces what his name was, and he admitted he didn't have one. So Orko gave him the name Manny-Faces. Manny-Faces switched faces a lot in this episode, and it's probably the best use of his face-changing gimmick in any media from the 1980s. The only other cartoon that featured Manny-Faces is the Season 2 episode, The Shadow of Skeletor, which originally aired in September of 1984. This episode began with Manny-Faces and Teela rehearsing for a play. Ram Man arrived and thought Manny-Faces was a monster, so he attacked him to save Teela, destroying the set for the play in the process. Manny-Faces and Ram Man each blamed each other and stopped being friends. Shortly after this, He-Man stopped a spaceship from crashing into the palace, and it turned out that Beastman was the pilot. Teela shot him with a force field just before Skeletor called on the radio, so Manny-Faces used his acting ability to impersonate Beastman while talking to Skeletor. After finding out where the ship was headed, the group put Beastman into an Eternian jail cell and had Manny-Faces disguise himself as Beastman to find out Skeletor's plan. It turned out that Skeletor had tricked King Barbo and the people of the Dark Moon into thinking that the people of the Bright Moon were destroying the Dark Moon. King Barbo tore up the Treaty of Friendship and was about to use a photon blaster to destroy the colony on the Bright Moon when Prince Adam convinced the king to give him a chance to figure out what was really going on. When Manny-Faces, disguised as Beastman, arrived on the Dark Moon, he was met by Evil Lyn, Trapjaw, Merman, and Whiplash, who admitted to causing all of the problems for the Dark Moon colony. Just as he was about to warn Prince Adam, Skeletor and the real Beastman, who had escaped from the Eternian prison, arrived and called him out. Fortunately, He-Man and Ram-Man showed up to take care of the bad guys. In the end, the people from the Dark Moon and the Bright Moon made up, and so did Ram-Man and Manny-Faces. Aside from those two episodes, Man-E-Face's only other 1980s animated appearance was a single-shot cameo at the end of the He-Man and She-Ra Christmas special, which aired in December of 1985. Even with just his orange laser pistol, I obviously thought Man-E-Faces was a cool figure since he was one of just 6 figures that I had as a kid. I can't even imagine how cool I would have thought he was if he had all of those bonus weapons. What did you think of the Masters of the Universe Man-E-Faces figure? Did you have him as a kid? Was he a favorite of yours, or were none of his faces enough to hold your interest? Tell me in the comments below. Also, please give this video a like, share it on social media, and if you enjoy my content, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notifications bell. And one last thing, if you collect toys, you should know about Toylanta, one of the biggest toy shows in the southeastern United States, held annually just north of Atlanta, Georgia. Visit Toylanta.com for more information. As always, thanks for watching.